everyone. So in this video we will see how we can make our custom hooks to do abstraction of a particular logic. So let's see what we have. So we have just a basic create react app setup here, and I have only a file called useFetch and it's empty right now. So what we are going to do is we will make an hook that will call an API, and it will fetch the response of the API, and for that I have also added the Axios library. You can see here the Axios library for fetching the request, and for the dummy API we will use the JSON placeholder API. So let's see how this works. So what are hooks actually? So hooks are nothing more than a function that returns something. So and we can combine some predefined hooks that React gives us, like useState and useEffect, to create our own custom hook. So what we are going to do is, so we will firstly create and we will make an API request, and then we will return the response of the request. So to achieve this, what we are going to do is we will create a function, and let's name it useFetch. Just a name convention to name a custom hook. We use useFetch, such as like we have useState and useEffect. So we have useFetch. So we will name it useFetch, and it's currently returns just an empty array for now. So what we can do is we can import Axios. So let me change the import statement here. Import Axios from Axios. So we have our Axios package, and we can call this API request on the JSON placeholder API request. So initially we will try fetching the to-dos. So this is the list of the to-dos. So what we will do, we will just copy this URL and we will use the object here to pass the configuration. So we will set the method to get, because this is in get request, and the URL option to the URL that we just copied. So and this is the basic configuration we need, and then we can attach a dot then call here, dot then, and here we will get the response. And for now let's just log the response out here, so see what we are getting back from the API. And let's also chain a catch, so in case if we have any error we can also catch it. And let's export this, export default useFetch, and we have done nothing much here. We have just created an arrow function and we have returned an empty array. And what we can do is we can import this function in an app.js file. So what I will do, I will just import useFetch from dot slash, I have the folder hooks, and inside the hooks I have the useFetch file, and we can call the use fetch hook here. Currently it's not doing anything. We are just calling a dummy function, nothing else. So let's see what it prints. So if I open the developer console, let me inspect. So it has given out the response from the API back to us. So we have received our 200 API, the to-do items similar to this. So we can see this is the similar object. So how to make this function as a hook? So what is the main code logic of creating a hook? It's that we can use the same logic again and again. So what we will do is that we can give custom data, and based on that configuration the request will be made. So I will add a config parameter here, and in the option parameter I will just pass the config parameter. Okay, and we can also combine other hooks to create a hook. So I will also import the use state hook and use effect hook from the React React. So now I have that in place. What I will do is I will say const response and set response equal to use state, and we will give an empty array as an initial state. And we can do that similarly for error. So error and set error, initial it is null. And what we will do is that we will remove this API call from here, and we will paste it inside a try catch block. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just catching the error. So I don't need to do this. I can write simply like const request equal to Axios. I will just update it here. Oh, sorry. Let's stop doing that. Let's keep it simple. So whenever my this function is loaded in the DOM, I want it to run and return the response of the given configuration. So what I can do, I can use effect hook here. So what I'm doing, I'm combining multiple React hooks to create my new custom hook. So I will give it here async function, or we can just keep it a normal function. And I only want it to run once when the component is loaded, so I can do that here. And I can remove this from here, and inside this I can call my API with the configuration provided from above, and when I get them .get, let's keep it a little bit tidy. .then I will get the response, and inside the response I will set the response to response.data. And I will also add a .catch, so if we have any errors, and I will just set error to error.message, and I will also just log the error. So what we have done till now, we have just created use effect that makes an API call on the given configuration. And now what we can do is we can return the response and the error. So why we have used this response as a state here, because we want to the response get changed whenever our state changes. So initially we have an empty array, and if we simply call this, this will always remain as an empty array. But when this response will change, the new response will be again returned to the object. So let's see how this works. So let's try this. So inside the app where I've called the useFetch, I will just store the result there. Const response comma error equal to useFetch, and remember we have to pass the configuration here. So what were the configuration? We will just mention what is the method that we are trying to get it, and what is the URL of the. So let me just grab the URL of the to-do list. It is here. And just log the response and error. So let's see what our app is spitting out. So you see, initially it's a null array, then we get our that the error that we have something not 404 not found error. So we have successfully built our hook, but let's see why we have this error. So let's just again copy this, because this is not a valid URL. So let's try again, and this time this should work. So you see, this is how a custom hooks work. So initially we have an null object from the response, then we have this null in the error, and we have received our API request, like the list of to do items. So we can use this single use fetch hook to fetch multiple things. For example, so if I just copy this again here, let's just name this response underscore new error underscore new. Instead of to do's, let's make this posts. So if we see, so now we have a list of different posts, and that is too coming from this API, this JSON placeholder API. So you can see that by a single function we have wrote here in this use fetch with a minimum, I think 18 to 20 lines, we have achieved our goal to make API calls. And to enhance this furthermore, what we can do is we can also create a new state to show whether these currently we are fetching the data or not. To do that, we can say like const loading comma set loading equal to use state. So whenever this hook is invoked, we will make it true, that set loading is true, and after getting the response we will set the set loading to false. And let me just copy this and put this in the catch statement also, because if we have reached an error, then still we have completed our response. And I will just also return this. So I'm returning this, and in the app, let me just get rid of this for now. What I will do, I will just also get the loading, and what I can do is, based on the loading, I can dynamically output something. So how can I do that is, so here I can say a new paragraph tag, and in this paragraph tag I can say, so if it's loading, if loading is true, then show, and let me just make it an div. If the loading is true, that I will just put in p tag and say loading, and if the loading is completed, then what I can do is I can print for the length of the response I have got. So in the p tag I will say response new dot length. So let me just go back. You can see it's for a split second it shows loading, and then it just shows me the length of the array. And I can do this for this URL as well. So I can just change the URL, and I can have the same behavior in different camps. So just imagine you have three different components and you want to get some data, so you don't have to write the same code again and again in different three components to get a similar response. You can just create a custom hook to get that. So this was just an introduction what you can do with hooks. There are a lot of applications out there, so just like checking for the authentication and creating higher order components to check, to create private routes and such that. So in future lectures we will create such more videos on hooks and advanced React topics. Till then, thank you for watching.